All right, so we're diving deep into KPMG today.
Deep, deep.
But this isn't like your typical overview, We want to help you figure out if KPMG is actually a dream job or, honestly, maybe a nightmare in disguise.
That's right.
We've got a ton of employee reviews from source name redacted, and let me tell you, some of this stuff is wild.
It is. It is.
We're talking the good, the bad, and the stuff that'll make you go, wait, really? So you can make a good decision, right?
Absolutely.
So we're cutting through all that corporate PR fluff, and we're going to get to the heart of what it's really like to work at one of these big four companies.
The ones everyone's heard of.
Yeah.
But nobody really knows what goes on inside.
Exactly. And speaking of things everyone seems to agree on, the people at KPMG, they actually get amazing reviews. It's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Over and over again, people talk about how helpful and friendly their colleagues are and how they make even the really tough days bearable. Like one person even said, the people are great and will go above and beyond if you ask for their help. It's almost like they're a family, which I guess you'd need when...
You're working all the time.
Right. Because the big thing here is work-life balance, or the lack of it, really.
Yeah, we're not just talking about like the occasional late night here and there.
Well,
Some people are saying they're working 60, 70 hours a week, especially when things get busy.
Wow.
Yeah, there's even one senior audit associate from Singapore who said they had to completely sacrifice their social life.
Yeah.
Ouch.
No social life. That's a pretty serious statement. It makes you wonder, is it really worth it? Is the career progression at KPMG so good that you're willing to just burn yourself out?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people, especially those just starting out, right out of college, they see KPMG as a stepping stone, a way to get some serious experience on their resume and climb that corporate ladder quickly. Yeah, one review even called it a great place to start a career as a newly minted graduate.
Yeah.
They said they have good benefits and vacation, too.
So there's definitely that initial appeal, but, and this is a big but, a lot of reviews mention that salary increases, well, they don't exactly match the crazy workload and the fast pace,
It's a common complaint, yeah.
One person even said they got less than an 8% raise over 3 years, even though they had good performance reviews and even got promoted.
Wow.
So you might be moving up fast, but your bank account might not be keeping up.
Yeah, that raises a good question for anyone listening. What are your salary expectations going into this? Are you willing to put in the time and the effort for the experience, even if the money isn't great right away?
It's a gamble, for sure.
It is.
Okay, let's move on to company culture. And get ready for some whiplash, because the opinions are all over the map, ranging from good to toxic.
Yeah, it's a huge red flag, isn't it? That kind of inconsistency tells me that the experience can be totally different depending on your team or your department or even just your manager.
So you could end up on this awesome, supportive team where everyone's thriving. Or
you could end up in a nightmare scenario.
And unfortunately, we did find one really disturbing review. This person alleged harassment and some really unfair practices within senior management. They even went so far as to describe some unwanted physical contact.
That's awful.
Yeah, and it's hard to ignore something like that. I mean, one review doesn't define a whole company, of course, but it does raise some serious concerns about leadership and accountability, at least in some parts of KPMG.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a stark reminder that even in a huge, well-established organization, things can go very wrong.
Definitely.
It makes you wonder, how much variation is there really within the company culture, and how would you even figure that out before you accept a job?
It's a tough one.
It is, and to make things even more confusing, we also saw a ton of positive reviews, people talking about supportive environments, strong teams, and great opportunities to learn from all sorts of different colleagues.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
Definitely not. But it does make it really hard to figure out what the culture is really like. Beyond all the polished marketing and those official statements,
It's like trying to solve a mystery.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what we're going to try to help you do. So stick around as we dig deeper into these reviews and uncover more clues about what it's really like to work at KPMG.
Sounds good to me. All right, so we've talked about the people, the work-life balance, all that, but there's more to this KPMG puzzle, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
One thing that keeps popping up in these reviews is this idea that KPMG is stable, like stable and predictable.
Interesting.
On the surface, that sounds pretty good, don't you think?
Especially these days, yeah. Job security is a big deal for a lot of people. Knowing you're working for a company that's not going to go under tomorrow, that can be a real weight off your shoulders.
Totally. But here's the thing. That same stability that some people love, it can also feel kind of stifling for others.
Right, if you're someone who thrives on change. or innovation or taking risks. KPMG's predictable environment might not be the best fit.
Yeah, it's like choosing between a safe, well-worn path or venturing out into the unknown.
Exactly.
And speaking of paths, a lot of reviewers mention the learning curve at KPMG. They say it's steep, which can be exciting, but also a little overwhelming.
Makes sense.
You're thrown into all these different industries, working with all kinds of clients.
And you got to learn fast.
Yeah, it sounds like a real sink or swim kind of place.
It does.
And some people, based on the reviews, they actually love that. They see it as a way to accelerate their learning, get a ton of experience in a short amount of time.
But remember those 60, 70-hour work weeks we talked about?
Yeah.
That kind of pace can lead to burnout pretty quickly if you're not careful.
It's a classic high-risk, high-reward situation.
Definitely something to think about.
Okay, here's an interesting thing I noticed. A bunch of reviewers said that KPMG is all about outcomes, not just activity.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, one person even said, over here, it's about outcomes, not activity. People who deliver results get rewarded. Yeah.
That's kind of refreshing to hear, actually. It challenges that stereotype of Big Four firms being all about FaceTime and looking busy.
Yeah, I thought so too. But it also makes you wonder, how do they define outcomes?
That's the key question, right?
Is it just about hitting financial targets? Or are they also looking at things like client satisfaction or even employee well-being?
That's a good point.
Because ultimately, you want to work for a company that defines success in a way that aligns with your own values.
Absolutely.
Speaking of values, let's go back to that whole culture thing. We've seen some pretty extreme opinions, right? Some people praising the great culture, others calling it toxic.
It's a real head-scratcher.
How do we make sense of such different perspectives?
Well, remember what we were talking about earlier. The experience can be totally different depending on your team, your department, even your manager.
Oh, right.
So you could end up in this amazing collaborative environment where everyone's happy and doing well.
Or you could end up with a micromanaging boss and a super competitive atmosphere.
Exactly.
It's like a gamble, and there's really no way to know for sure what you're getting into until you're already there.
That's the tough part.
It is. But reading through these reviews, it seems like a lot of the negative stuff, it comes from those crazy long hours and the constant pressure to deliver.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it all comes back to knowing yourself and your limits. Can you handle that kind of pressure? Or do you need a more balanced lifestyle?
It's a personal choice, really.
There's no right or wrong answer, just what's right for you.
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears for a minute. Let's talk about the different types of work you can actually do at KPMG.
Good point.
I mean, we've been talking about it in this general sense, but it's a huge company.
It is.
There's tons of different departments, specializations.
KPMG is almost like an umbrella term.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We've seen reviews from auditors, tax consultants, advisory professionals, even people in tech and data analytics.
Wow, so it's really diverse.
It is, and each of those areas is going to have its own unique culture and demands.
So if you're seriously thinking about KPMG, it's not enough to just know about the general pros and cons. You got to get specific, figure out which department you're interested in, and then dive deep into the reviews from people in those areas.
That's great advice.
I try.
You do.
All right, another theme that came up a lot is employee development and training. KPMG seems to invest a lot in this.
They do.
Offering formal training programs, mentorship opportunities. They even sponsor employees to get professional certifications.
That's a big plus, especially for those early in their careers.
It shows they're actually committed to helping their employees grow and learn new skills.
And it's smart from a business perspective, too. In today's world, companies need people who can adapt and learn quickly.
Yeah, that's true. But it's also worth thinking about the other side of that.
What do you mean?
Well, is all that training really designed to benefit the employees? Or is it more about equipping them to handle the ever-increasing demands of the job?
I see what you're saying.
It's easy to get excited about all these development opportunities, but you have to ask yourself, is this actually helping me grow? Or am I just being molded to fit the KPMG machine?
Another good point.
Okay, let's not sugarcoat things here. The long working hours, they are a real problem, especially during busy season.
Yeah, and for some departments, it feels like busy season is all year round.
Right. We saw multiple reviews talking about 12-hour days, working weekends, even pulling all-nighters.
It's a demanding environment for sure.
And it's not just about you either. That kind of schedule impacts your family, your friends, your whole life outside of work.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people don't think about.
So are you really prepared to make those sacrifices?
It's a question everyone has to answer for themselves.
Okay, so let's say you are willing to put in the time. What about the rewards? We already talked about salary increases not being great. But what about other perks and benefits?
Well, there are definitely some perks. Lots of reviewers mention good health insurance, retirement plans, even things like gym memberships and travel discounts.
Those are nice, but are they enough to balance out the crazy work-life balance?
It's a trade-off, for sure.
It all comes down to your priorities, right?
Absolutely. Some people value experiences over material things. Others prioritize spending time with loved ones or pursuing hobbies.
There's no one right answer.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in these conversations. The actual impact of the work that KPMG does.
Oh, interesting.
We're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet here.
Right.
They're advising major companies, influencing financial markets, potentially even shaping the global economy.
High-stakes stuff.
It is, and that can be exciting, but also a little daunting.
Definitely.
It makes you wonder about the ethical implications, too. We've all heard those stories about corporate scandals and financial disasters. It's natural to question the role these big firms play in those situations.
It's a complex issue, no easy answers.
It is, but it's something to think about, especially if you're someone who cares about ethical conduct and social responsibility. So where does all this leave us? We've covered a lot of ground, the good, the bad, and the ugly of working at KPMG.
We have.
The work-life balance, the company culture, the ethical considerations.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, and you might be feeling a little more confused now than when we started.
It's understandable.
But don't worry, we're going to help you make sense of it all. In the next part, we'll bring it back to you and your individual goals.
Sounds good.
We'll give you some practical tips and strategies for evaluating KPMG and making an informed decision that aligns with your values and your aspirations.
We'll equip you with the tools you need to navigate this whole crazy world.
Whether you end up at KPMG or somewhere else entirely.
Exactly.
All right, so we've gone through it all. The good, the bad, the ugly of working at KPMG.
Covered a lot of ground, yeah.
But let's be real for a second. This whole deep dive wasn't really about KPMG, was it?
Nope.
It was about you. It was about giving you the info you need to make a smart choice about your career.
Exactly. We've laid it all out there. The facts, the trends, even some of the juicier stuff, but only you can decide if KPMG is actually a good fit for you.
So let's get down to brass tacks. If you were seriously thinking about working at KPMG, what would you do next?
Good question.
How would you go beyond those surface-level impressions and really get a feel for what the culture is like?
Well, first things first, I'd tap into my network.
Your network, yeah.
Do you know anyone who's worked at KPMG? Or even better, someone who's currently there.
Right.
Don't be shy. Reach out to them.
Yeah, a casual conversation can tell you way more than any online review.
Oh, absolutely.
It's amazing what people will share over a cup of coffee.
That's the truth.
You can get the real, unfiltered story, the good, the bad, and the stuff they'd never write down.
And don't just talk to people in your exact field either.
Oh, good point.
Branch out, talk to people from different departments, different levels of seniority.
Get a wider perspective.
Exactly. The more perspectives you get, the clearer the picture becomes.
It's like a detective investigation.
That's a good way to put it.
But what if you don't really know anyone at KPMG? Where else can you go for info?
LinkedIn, my friend.
LinkedIn, okay.
It's not just for job hunting. It's a treasure trove of information.
How so?
You can search for current and former KPMG employees, see what they're saying, check out their career paths. You might even find someone who's willing to chat with you.
It's like a giant digital networking event.
Exactly.
And don't forget about those review sites like Glassdoor, Indeed, even Reddit.
Oh, yeah, those can be helpful, but you gotta take those reviews with a grain of salt.
Because they can be pretty subjective, right?
Exactly. One person's toxic culture is another person's challenging but rewarding environment.
It's all about context.
Right, so pay attention to the themes, the recurring issues. See if those resonate with your own deal breakers.
It's like pattern recognition, looking for those red flags.
Exactly.
And don't just focus on the negative stuff. What are the positive things that people consistently mention? Do those excite you?
Those are the things you want to pay attention to.
It's about finding that alignment between what KPMG offers and what you're looking for in a job.
Exactly.
But, beyond the online world, there's another really powerful tool at your disposal.
What's that?
Your own 2 feet.
Your feet.
Get out there, attend industry events, conferences, anything where KPMG people might be hanging out.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
You never know who you might bump into. A casual chat at a networking event could lead to a job offer, Or, just as importantly, it could confirm that KPMG is definitely not the place for you.
Makes sense.
And while you're gathering all this information, don't forget to listen to your gut.
Your gut?
If something feels off, if the vibes are wrong, trust your instincts.
It's like that little voice in your head that says, run!
Or maybe it's more of a, something's not right here.
Either way, don't ignore it.
Your intuition is powerful.
It really is.
So there you have it, your personalized action plan for figuring out if KPMG is your dream job or a career detour.
We've given you the knowledge, the strategies.
Now it's time for you to take the reins.
Go forth, young professional, and conquer the corporate world.
Or at least navigate it with a bit more wisdom, confidence, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
And remember, the most important thing is that you find a path that aligns with your values, your goals, and your definition of success.
Well said. That's it for our deep dive into KPMG. We hope you found it insightful, maybe even a little bit entertaining.
Until next time, happy job hunting.